Hello everyone. Today we are going to revise the entire syllabus of AECC Environmental Sciences, which is beneficial for your semester examinations. So all of you be attentive and go through this syllabus. First of all, we have to know the definition of environment, which is given by different scientists. Like according to Boring, a person's environment consists of sum total of the stimulation which he receives from his conceptions until his death, indicating that environment comprises of various types of forces such as physical, intellectual, mental, economical, political, cultural, social, moral, and emotional. And similarly, another scientist, Douglas and Holland, also given the definition of environmental science. So we are going to define the concept of environmental science in the simplest way. Now you can see here the simple definition of environmental science as environmental science is two words. It is study of environment, and another one is your mm, uh, it is the in simple way we can say that the study of our surrounding is known as environmental science. As environmental science, two word environment means to surround, and science means study of something. So we can say easily it's the study of our surrounding is known as environmental science. Now we go for components of environment. There are two components of environments are there. One is your biotic component, which is living component. Another one is your abiotic component, which is non-living component. What are these biotic components? Biotic components are all producers, consumers, and decomposers. What are producers? The organisms which can produce their own food is known as producer, and the organisms which depend upon other organisms for their food is known as consumer, and the organisms which can degrade, dead, and decay matter is known as decomposer. All plants are coming under producer, all animals are coming under consumer, and all microorganisms like bacteria and fungus are coming under decomposer. Here is some consumers again divided into different types of organisms depending upon their food habit like herbivore, carnivore, omnivores, sanguivores, and scavengers. You can see from here. And abiotic components are all non-living components such as your atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, and cryosphere. What is atmosphere? The places which is surrounded by air is your atmosphere, and the places which is surrounded by water is your hydrosphere, and the places surrounded by soil and rock is your lithosphere, and places surrounded by ice caps is known as glacier, is known as cryosphere. Now you can see here different layers of atmosphere. Depending upon the altitude, whenever we go up, rise up to we go up to 20 kilometers, it is troposphere. After 20 kilometers to 50 kilometers, it is stratosphere, and 50 to 85, it is your mesosphere. And 85 to 690 kilometers, it is thermosphere. And apart from this, exosphere is there. Yeah, sometimes your questions will be like this. In which sphere of the atmosphere ozone layer is situated? That is your stratosphere. Which layer is coldest layer? That is your mesosphere. And which layer is hottest layer? Is your thermosphere. Similarly, the different zones of hydrospheres are there. Your photic zone, aphotic zone, and benthic zone, depending upon the light. As photos means light. The zone where light can be easily penetrate into this is known as photic zone. And aphotic zone means absence of light. The zone where no light is passes through is known as aphotic zone. Similarly, lithosphere is again having different layers such as the inner layer is your inner core, and just above the inner core, outer core is there, and just above the outer core, mantle is there, and just above the mantle, upper mantle is there, and just above the upper mantle, crust is there. Um, Again, another topic is your multidisciplinary nature of environmental science. Why environmental science is known as multidisciplinary in nature? You can see here multidisciplinary. Multi means more than one, and discipline. What are these disciplines? There are so many disciplines which are associated with environmental sciences, as there are several disciplines associated with environmental sciences. So, environmental science is known as multidisciplinary in nature. You can see here several disciplines like ecology, biology, chemistry, atmospheric science, oceanography, geology, archaeology, anthropology, sociology, history, political science, engineering, economics, and ethics all are associated with environmental science. So this environmental science is known as multidisciplinary in nature. You can see here different explanations of this multidisciplinary in nature. The science of environmental studies is a multidisciplinary science because it depends on various disciplines like chemistry, physics, medical science, etc. It is the science of physical phenomena in the environment. It is inherently a multidisciplinary field that draws upon not only its core scientific areas but also applies knowledges from other non-scientific studies such as economic law and social sciences. You can see here how it is associated with other disciplines. You can see here how it is associated with physics, associated with chemistry, associated with biology, associated with atmospheric science. All these points explained here. You can fetch all these points from here also. And it also associated with ecology, environmental chemistry, geoscience, mathematics and computer science, economics, law, and social sciences. And why do we study environmental science? We study environmental science to gain some knowledge about different kinds of pollutants, different kinds of toxic substances, which substances is the toxic, which is non-toxic. We will be able to know about this and to change our attitude and to be skilled and also create awareness among people to protect our environment and create a clean and green environment. That's why we study environmental studies. And sometimes question will be like this: write down the name of any two environmental organizations or any four environmental organizations. At that time, you have to write like this. So there are a list of environmental organizations are here, like Animal Welfare Board of India, National Biodiversity Authority, Wildlife Crime Control Bureau, Central Zoo Authority, Wildlife Trust of India, and some non-government organizations like Chintan, Greenpeace India, Health Delhi Bay, Clean Air Asia India, and the Wildlife Protection Society of India, Navdanya, Toxic Links, Environics, Harajivan, Forest, Innovation, Avani Institute of Sustainable Communities, and so many organizations are there. You can write any two or any four, depending upon your question. And sometimes the question will be like this: write down any two or any four scopes of environmental studies. There are so many scopes of environmental studies are there, which are the scopes of environmental studies are most likely as conservation of natural resources, and ecological aspects, reduce the pollution of surroundings and controlling the pollution, social issues connected to it, and impacts of human population on the environment. And what is the role of an individual for protection of environment? How can you protect environment? Role of an individual like creating awareness among people and cleanliness of the society, afforestation, waste management, conservation of resources, sustainable development. One can protect environment in such a way. You can see here different methods for conservation of natural resources like construction of dams for your conservation of water resources, afforestation, and rainwater harvesting, and also use of renewable energy resources by using solar panels. And also people can create awareness through different ways like school level education, college level education, through seminars, workshops, and different by celebrating different days like World Environment Day, World Water Day, Earth Day, etc. And another topic is your natural resources. Before going to this, you have to know that what is resource. What is resource? Anything that has some utility is known as resource. Then what is nature? Natural resources, the resource which we obtain from nature is known as natural resources. And natural resources refer to the things that exist freely in the nature for human use and don't necessarily need the action of mankind for the generation or production. The natural resources are the naturally occurring material that are essential or useful to human for their survival. In simple, you can write anything that has some utility is known as resources, and the resource which we obtain from nature is known as natural resources. Natural resources can be classified on the basis of their availability, origin, economic value, etc. On the basis of their availability, natural resources is classified as renewable and non-renewable resources. The resource which we can renew again and again is known as renewable resources. It is otherwise known as inexhaustible resource. And the resource which we cannot renew again and again is known as non-renewable resources, and it is otherwise known as exhaustible resource. On the basis of origin, the natural resource is again divided into two types. One is biotic, another one is abiotic. As I have already discussed in your previous chapter, biotic means living and abiotic is your non-living things. So another natural resources can be classified on the basis of the stages of development like actual resource and potential resource. There are so many primary natural resources are there. What are these primary natural resources and which resources is known as primary natural resources? The resources, whether exhaustible and inexhaustible, are created by nature. Human beings for their survival depend on the natural resources. For example, the air, water, land, forest, etc. The life supporting resources are air, water, land, and forest. Without air, water, or land, the life cannot be supported. So these resources is known as primary natural resources. And what is the role of an individual in conservation of natural resources? What one can do to conserve natural resources? As I have stated earlier, forest, grassland, wetland, water resources, and land resources are the natural resources. The rapid changes in climate, mineral cycle, land cover, and biotic communities cause anthropogenic global change radically. Moreover, because of overexploitation of the natural resources, these have reached beyond their generation capacity. Finally, the future generation will be deprived of the natural resources. In order to pass on the resources to the future generation, each individual should reduce consumption level, controls population increase, cultivate vegetables and fruits for their need in their own land, and finally should lead a simple life. And we should always try to use renewable resources instead of non-renewable. And we should adopt sustainable development, and we should use resources in judicious manner by which one can conserve natural resources. And what is sustainable development? Sustainable development is the development that meets the needs of present and would meet the needs of future generation is the sustainable development. What is the need of sustainable development? The basic need of sustainable development is to improve the quality of life without necessarily having to consume more resources and to utilize resources in economic terms and to educate the public to create awareness for understanding the concepts involved in sustainable development and work to achieve it. And another need is to invite the people of all races to work together for creating healthy and clean environment and to protect and restore natural resources for the present and future generation and to reduce the disparities between the poor and rich and the developed and the developing countries with respect to economy, technology, and food production. This is the need of sustainable development. And now we go for another chapter, that is your ecology and ecosystem. Before going to this, you have to know that what is ecology and what is ecosystem. The ecology and ecosystem both are different terms. Ecology here two terms are joined together, eco and logy. Eco, oikos, it comes from two Greek words. One is your oikos, another one is your logos. Oikos means house and logos means study. So study about house or dwelling place is your ecology. And what is ecosystem? As I have already discussed, there are two components of environments are there. One is your biotic component and another one is your abiotic component. There are certain kind of relationship between them between biotic and abiotic components are there. So such relationship between the biotic and abiotic component of the environment is known as ecosystem. You can see here the term ecology is derived from two words. Oikos means house and logos means study. So ecology is the study about the dwelling place, and scientist Ernest Haeckel coined the term ecology. And remember one thing, father of ecology is different. Scientist who coined the term ecology is different. Scientist Ernest Haeckel coined the term ecology, whereas the E.P. Odum is known as father of ecology. The interrelationship between the biotic and abiotic component of an environment is known as ecosystem, and scientist A.G. Tansley coined the term ecosystem. Scientists who coined the term ecology and who coined the term ecosystem both are different. Remember this one. Scientist Ernest Haeckel coined the term ecology, and scientist A.G. Tansley coined the term ecosystem, and scientist E.P. Odum is known as father of ecology. There are several interacting units of ecosystems are there. For example, it starts from individual, and then a number of individual combines to form a population. A number of population combines to form a community, and a number of community combines to form a ecosystem. A number of ecosystem combines to form a biosphere. So the smallest unit of these interacting units of ecosystem is individual, and the largest one is a biosphere. Here is explanations for all these terms are there: individual, population, community, ecosystem, biome, land biome, aquatic biome, and biosphere. You can go through this, and yeah, all the details are inside this. And now we go for components of ecosystem. Components of ecosystem is exactly same as your components of environment. You can go through this previous slide and prepare it well. Then we go for types of ecosystem. An ecosystem can be classified into two types. One is your natural ecosystem, another one is your artificial or man-made ecosystem. Both natural and artificial ecosystem is classified into two types. One is your terrestrial, another one is your aquatic ecosystem. The terrestrial ecosystem is your land-based ecosystem, and the aquatic ecosystem is your water-based ecosystem. Examples of terrestrial ecosystems are forest, grassland, and desert. And examples of aquatic ecosystem is your aquatic ecosystem is again divided into two types. One is your freshwater ecosystem, and another one is your marine water ecosystem. And both natural and artificial ecosystem is classified into two types, that is your terrestrial ecosystem and aquatic ecosystem. Land-based ecosystem is known as terrestrial ecosystem, and water-based ecosystem is your aquatic ecosystem. Examples of terrestrial ecosystems are forest, grassland, and desert. And aquatic ecosystem is again divided into two types, that is freshwater ecosystem and marine water ecosystem. Pond, river, and freshwater lake is coming under your freshwater ecosystem, and seas and oceans are coming under your marine water ecosystem. And if your question will be on write down the functions of ecosystem, then you have to write about the food chain and food web, energy flow, and nutrient cycling. What is food chain? What is food web? And how energy can flow? And how nutrient is recycling? Food chain is a linear chain, whereas food web is a complex web-like structure of eating and being eaten habit of each and every organism. And energy flow, the ultimate source of energy is your sun. Energy comes from sun to comes to your first trophic level, then second trophic level, then third trophic level, and 1/10 of energy is passed from one trophic level to another trophic level, and 1/10 of energy passed from one trophic level to the another trophic level. There are two types of energy flow models are there. One is your single channel energy flow model, another one is a Y-shaped energy flow model. In case of food chain, single channel energy flow model is there, but in case of food web, Y-shaped energy flow model is there. The nutrient cycling, nutrient cycling is otherwise known as biogeochemical cycle. What is biogeochemical cycle? You can see here three terms are there. One is your bio, one is geo, another one is chemical. Here chemical means nutrient, geo is your earth, and bio is your living. So recycling of nutrient in this earth by living organisms is known as biogeochemical cycle. You can also go through this another video of biogeochemical cycle. You can find out the detail. Here explanation of all these types of ecosystems and different process of ecosystems are there. You can fetch from it and write down from here. Next is your ecological succession. This is one of the important topic. What is ecological succession? Succession means changes. How one ecosystem changes to form another ecosystem. That is your ecological succession. It is not a sudden change. It is a gradual change. So the definition of ecological succession is the gradual changes from one ecosystem to another ecosystem is known as ecological succession. As you can see here, one ecosystem, that is pond ecosystem, is converted into a forest ecosystem. It is not a sudden change, it is a gradual change. So this type of change is known as ecological succession. Ecological succession is a series of predictable changes that occurs in a community over a long periods of time. And you can see here, one barren landscape is there. After some days, some pioneer species introduced into this, and then intermediate community is found here. Some species are dominant over some species, and they found at the end of this succession. And that end point of the succession is known as climax community. And then perturbation occurs, then secondary succession happens, and the initial stage of succession is called primer stage, and final stage of the succession is called climax stage, and each and every stages of succession is called zear. As you know that the succession which found in water bodies is your hydrozear, the succession of land mass is known as xerozear, and succession of amphibious stage is known as mesozear. And next topic is on biodiversity and its conservation. What is biodiversity? Biodiversity. You can see here two terms are there. One is your bio, another one is diversity. As I have already discussed, bios means living. Diversity means variation. The variety and variability among living organisms is known as biodiversity. What is biodiversity? The variety and variability among living organisms is known as biodiversity. And the term biodiversity comes from two Greek words. Bios means life, diversity means form, which means the variety of all forms of life. The term biodiversity was coined by W.G. Rosen in the year of 1985. There are three hierarchical levels of biodiversities are there. These are genetic diversity and species diversity and community diversity. What is genetic diversity? Diversity due to gene. As one human being is looking different from another human being is known as genetic diversity. And what is species diversity? The diversity from one species to another species. As the dog is looking completely different from cat. So this diversity is known as species diversity. And what is ecosystem diversity? As one pond ecosystem is completely different from a forest ecosystem. So it is coming under ecosystem diversity. Now, one important point is your hotspots of biodiversity. What is hotspots of biodiversity? Hotspots of biodiversity are the areas where there are rich in biodiversity with endemic flora and fauna, and under constant threat of species extinction and habitat destruction are called hotspots of biodiversity. And there are four hotspots of biodiversity are found in India. One is the Western Ghat, one is Eastern Himalaya, one is Indo-Burma, another one is your Sundarland. And there are more points are here, the threats to biodiversity. What are the major threats to biodiversity, such as the rapid growth of human population, overexploitation of biological resources, habitat loss, poaching of wildlife, man-wildlife conflict, introduction of exotic species, natural calamities. There are so many threats to biodiversity are there. What are the consequences of loss of biodiversity? Consequences of loss of biodiversity are such as it would stop the evolutionary capacity of biota to cope up with environmental changes. It would result in extinction of species, and loss of biodiversity will be hard praised for human beings as they depend for their livelihood. It would invite the natural calamities also. And another point like endangered and endemic species. What is endangered and endemic species? The species which are very, very rarely found is known as these species which are in danger is known as endangered species which are going to be extinct is known as endangered species. The list of endangered and extinct species are enlisted in a book. That book is known as Red Data Book. Now we go for conservation of biodiversity. There are two methods of conservation of biodiversities are there. One is your in situ conservation. Another one is your ex situ conservation. What are the main objectives of conservation? Main objectives of conservation of biodiversity is to maintain ecological balance, to use the natural resources in a sustainable way, to preserve the life-sustaining system for the future generation, and to preserve the biodiversity so as to minimize or avoid extinction of species. So these two methods, what is in situ conservation and what is ex situ conservation. In situ means inside. The conservation inside their natural habitat, and ex situ means outside of their natural habitat. Conservation of organisms outside their natural habitat. Examples of in situ conservation is your biosphere reserve, and examples of ex situ conservation is your botanical garden, gene bank, seed bank, etc. Now we go for environmental pollution. What is environmental pollution? If any kind of unwanted substances enter into the environment, it creates environmental pollution. Pollution is the contamination of environment by introduction of contaminants that can cause damage to the environment and harm or discomfort to human or other living species. Environmental pollution is one of the greatest challenges that the world is facing today. It begins in industrial revolution, increasing day by day and causing irreparable damage to the mother earth. The environmental pollution has its own cause, effects, and solutions. And environmental pollutions are of different types, such as air pollution, water pollution, land pollution, soil, land or soil pollution, and noise pollution. There are four different kinds of environmental pollutions are there: land, water, air, and noise pollution. And we go for air pollution. Pollution of air, pollution of atmosphere is known as air pollution. Any unwanted substances or contaminants enter into the atmosphere causes air pollution. There are so many types of air pollutants are there, like carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and depending upon the sources of generation, these are divided into two types. One is your primary air pollutant and another one is your secondary air pollutant. The air pollutant which emits directly from the source is known as primary pollutants, and the pollutants um, which releases after the emission of primary pollutants and through the reaction in the atmosphere is known as secondary air pollutants. And examples of primary air pollutants are your oxides of nitrogen, oxides of sulfur, whereas the examples of secondary air pollutants are H2SO4, sulfuric acid, and ozone, photochemical smoke, etc. And the dangerous pollutants of air such, is known as critical pollutants, and which includes ozone, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, carbon dioxide, lead, and particulate matter. And what are the major causes of air pollution? Major causes are from different sources like industrial sources, domestic sources, mobile sources, and non-point sources also. And major primary pollutants which are produced by human activities are like oxides of sulfur, oxides of nitrogen, oxides of carbon, volatile organic compounds, and particles or particulate matters, and some toxic metals, and also chlorofluorocarbons, ammonia, and radioactive pollutants. These are the major primary pollutants which are produced by human activities. And some secondary pollutants which are produced by different processes like ground level ozone and particulate peroxyethyl nitrate. Remember, ground level ozone is harmful, but the ozone which is present in stratosphere is not harmful as it protects us from harmful ultraviolet rays. So it is known as good ozone, whereas the ground level ozone is termed as bad ozone. And another term is your smog. Smog is the combination of smoke and fog. And peroxyacetyl nitrate is formed from oxides of nitrogen and volatile organic carbon in presence of ultraviolet radiations in the sunlight. Both and pan together form photochemical smoke. And another point is the effects of air pollution. What kind of effects falls on the environment? Air pollution affects the human being, plant, and environment, including vegetation, crops, and forests. Some common pollutants, such as oxides of nitrogen, oxides of sulfur, and particulate matters, damage buildings, monuments, and statues. It also affects the aesthetic beauty of nature and the climate, and also causes airborne diseases, and the photochemical smoke causes irritation to eyes, lungs, nose, and throat, and atmosphere dust causes allergic and respiratory diseases, and the excess of carbon dioxide in atmosphere causes respiratory disorder, And effects of air pollution on animals such as particulates like fluorine coming from industries and insecticide spray, etc. And lead from automobile exhaust industries and arsenic from different industries which are released to atmosphere may deposit on plants, and when the animals feed upon these plants get affected with arsenic poison. And acid rain also causes due to air pollution. Ozone causes necrosis on leaves, and SO2 causes chlorosis due to bleaching action, and NO2 causes premature leaf fall. Similarly, acid rain damages crops and forests. On the whole, air pollutants greatly affect the plant's growth and metabolism by the destroying chlorophyll, hence the photosynthesis. And effects of air pollution on materials, different materials also corroded, and SO2, H2S, and particulates discolor the paints, and SO2 and acid gases make the paper brittle and damage leather. And effects of air pollution, aesthetic beauty also, and it also affect the climate badly. It increases the greenhouse gases and also increases the global warming, which ultimately causes the melting of glaciers, which disturb the entire ecosystem. And how can we control air pollution? The control of air pollution can be achieved by reducing the preventing the formation of a pollution or source itself. Land use planning strategies can also be adopted to reduce air pollutants. We will describe different various devices such as pollution control devices such as settling chamber, cyclone separator, baghouse filter, electrostatic precipitator, and wet scrubber, dry scrubber are used to control air pollution. And air pollution can also be controlled by the different control measures like control of smoke, afforestation, and conventional fuels, land use planning, population growth control, etc. And now another kind of pollution is your water pollution. And water pollution is the contamination of water bodies which are usually caused due to human activities. And drinking water, also called potable water, water is the considered safe enough for human and animal consumption. But these days, chemicals, bacteria, and other pollutants are even affecting our drinking water. There are different sources of water pollutions are there like domestic sources, industrial effluents, insecticides and pesticides, detergents and fertilizers. The effects of water pollution are it falls harmful effects on freshwater species, waterborne diseases, it depletes the oxygen level and increase the biochemical oxygen demand and increase eutrophication, biomagnification, that how can we control of water pollution? Water pollution can be controlled by say by adopting different measures like uh, by taking bath and washing clothes directly in water bodies should be prohibited, and separate ponds and washing separate ponds and tanks should be arranged for the water supply to the cattle and other animals by controlling from non-point sources. Similarly, control of industrial wastewater, and we should treat the wastewater before releasing to the surface water bodies. Water pollution can be controlled by different ways, like we should treat wastewater which is generated from industries and other mining sectors. We should treat, then we release this water into the surface water bodies. And now we go for another kind of pollution, that is your soil pollution. And soil, as we know that soil is necessary for the production of food for the substances of living organisms. The surface layer of the land is called soil. The word soil is derived from Latin word solum, which meaning upper crust of the earth. And soil is the thin layer consisting of organic and inorganic material that covers the earth's rocky surfaces. And the soil pollution is defined as the contamination caused by toxic compounds, chemicals, salts, radioactive materials, or disease causing agents which are harmful to plants, growth, and animals' health. And there are different types of soil pollutants are there, like domestic waste such as garbage, rubbish, and useless goods, and human and animal excreta, chemical pollutants such as soap, drugs, detergents, dyes, polymers, cements, rubber, solvent, etc. And synthetic organic compounds such as insecticides, pesticides, herbicides, and halogenated hydrocarbons. And industrial pollutants such as metallurgical industries or battery manufacturing industries produces lead, cadmium, zinc, etc. Mining industries releases minerals and coal, and thermal power plants also releases some soil pollutants. And photochemical industries produces different soil pollutants like fertilizers, oil refineries, and radioactive materials also produced from nuclear power plants. So there are different kinds of soil pollutants are there. And causes of soil pollution are such as excessive use of fertilizers and oil and fuel dumping, disposal of coal ash, disposal of medical ash, and drainage of contaminated water into the soil, and soil erosion, mining and deforestation, waterlogging and wetlands, disposal of radioactive materials, and some indirect causes like acid rain, percolation of contaminated surface water surfaces. And effects of soil pollution includes which causes um, uh, that polluted soil may no longer grow crops and fodder. Crops and fodder grown in polluted soils may pass the pollutants um, onto the consumer. Soil pollution may create toxic dust, corrosion of buildings and pipelines. Pollutants run off into the water bodies and kill fish and aquatic lives through soil erosion. And soil structure is also damaged. Different disease also caused in plants and animals, and it also causes disease like cholera, typhoid, etc. due to pathogenic soil bacteria, and also causes intestinal hookworm disease due to eggs of parasitic worms. And how can we control soil pollution? We can control soil pollution by reducing chemical fertilizers and pesticides use, and by recycling, recovering, and reusing materials, by minimizing the production of solid waste, by reforesting, by crop rotation, and mixed cropping, and solid waste treatments. Then we go for another kind of pollution, noise pollution. What is noise? Unwanted sound is known as noise. And noise pollution may be defined as the excessive or disrupting sound that may disrupt the activity or mental balance of human or animal life. The word noise is cognate with the Latin word nauseous, meaning disgust or discomfort. Noise pollution is a physical form of pollution which differs from the air, water, and soil pollution. What are the major causes of noise pollution? Major causes of noise pollution are industrial sources, transportation sources, household sources, agricultural machine sources, public meetings, and defense equipments, and civil engineering sources, and miscellaneous sources. Already written all these kinds of sources and examples here. You can fetch out from here. And effects of noise pollution are maybe physical effect like annoyance and aggregation, damage to eardrum, temporary impairment of hearing, permanent deafness, and chronic exposure to noise may cause noise-induced hearing loss. And psychological effect like depression, fatigue, and sleep disturbance, and psychological, physiological effects like cardiovascular effect, high stress level, memory loss, etc. And how can we control measure over noise pollution? Noise pollution can be controlled by turn off appliances at the home and traffic, shut the door when using noisy machines, and can use earplugs, lower the volume, stay away from noisy area, follow the limits of noise level, control noise level near sensitive areas, go green by planting trees, and create healthy noise to eliminate unwanted noise, use noise absorbents and in noisy machines, use proper lubricants, and notify authorities about disobedience of noise rules, and regularly check noise level. And what is the role of an individual in prevention and control of pollution? So, role of an individual, or like individuals should be educated through public meeting how to control or prevent pollution. Individuals should learn the 3 R's principle. Now it is 5 R's principle: reduce, reuse, recycle, recover. And each of us should not destroy forest but try to plant as many ash trees as possible, and do not throw the waste material here and there, and proper waste management is needed, and we should take care of the waste, and we should follow strictly the civic rules in honking the horns and in vehicles while moving by cars, buses, or two-wheelers, so as to prevent the noise pollution. We should learn about the vermicomposting. Instead of using chemical fertilizers, we can use organic fertilizers, organic pesticides, and manures. And do not throw waste materials into sewer and water bodies directly, and practice segregation at source in different dustbins for biodegradation and non-biodegradable waste materials. And there are so many social issues also associated with environment. What are these social issues? The social issues like sustainable development, conservation of energy resources, conservation of water, resettlement and rehabilitation of people, environmental ethics, and climate change, waste and reclamation and consumerism and waste products. And finally, last chapter is environmental laws. What is environmental laws? Environmental law is not a single law. It is a collection of laws which is associated with protection of environment. You can see here environmental law is the collection of laws, regulation, agreements, and common law that governs how humans interact with their environment. The purpose of environmental law is to protect the environment and create rules for how people can use natural resources. Environmental laws not only aim to protect the environment from harm, but they also determine who can use natural resources and on what terms. Laws may regulate pollution, the use of natural resources, forest protection, mineral harvesting, and animal population. And the six laws related to environment protection is your Environment Protection Act 1986, Forest Conservation Act 1980, Wildlife Protection Act 1972, Water Act 1974, Air Act 1981, and the Indian Forest Act 1927. The main objectives of Environment Protection Act 1986 is giving protection and improvement of environment and prevention of hazard to all living creatures and maintenance of harmonious relationship between human being and their environment. And main objectives of Water Act 1974 is prevention and control of water pollution, maintaining and restoring the wholesomeness of water, and establishment of central and state board for the prevention and control of water pollution, and for conferring on the assignment to such boards powers and functions relating thereto matters concerned with. And objectives of Air Act is to prevent and control abatement of pollution, especially maintaining the quality of water, establishment of CPCB and SPCB for the prevention and control of air pollution, empowers of boards of the implement the act. And this is uh, all about the environmental sciences, which covers entire AECC syllabus of environmental science. This video is much more beneficial for your semester examinations. So all these points cover here. Thank you for watching this video.